Every single year, there's always a handful of players in the NFL draft that, for whatever reason, fall down the board. So in today's video, I want to talk about some of the biggest steals of the 2025 NFL draft. Subscribe and like the video if you guys do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. Now, quickly before I do get into my list, I do want to hand out a few honorable mentions. Those are going to be Malachi Starks, who somehow fell to the bottom of the first round despite being a top 10 talent. Cameron Williams, a highly talented offensive tackle who fell all the way to the 7th round. And I'll also throw Xavier Watson there, a really highly touted safety who fell a lot farther than expected. With that said, we are going to begin with at my number 8, and yes, we have 8 players on this video, Bradyn Swinson. Now, if you guys follow my podcast, which by the way, you guys should, link in the description, called First and 10, you will enjoy it, I think. Bradyn Swinson's a heck of a player, just a constant disruptor. He had, I think, 9 sacks on the season last year and over 40 hurries. One of the reasons why he might have fallen is just that he only has like 1 serious year of legit experience. The previous years, he had playing time, but never was like a full-time starter. This year was one of his full-time starting years, and I thought he was dominant out there. He was great against the run, very talented player that fell somehow to the 5th round. And I'm sorry, there's just not 100 players in my opinion that are better than Bradyn Swinson, especially at rushing the passer, which is in my opinion the most important thing for a pass rusher to do. Yes, right now he's a little bit weak against the run, but he needs to probably put on a little bit more muscle, gain more experience. But man, he's got the size, the length, the pass rushing nuance, and just the disruption that I feel like a lot of teams should have been willing to take a flyer on probably around day 2. I had a very high grade on Bradyn Swinson. I had him as an early day 2 selection. I thought he was kind of a lock to go somewhere between 30 to 75, but fell all the way to the 5th round. So I think he was at, in the hundreds, which I think is just crazy. Again, I don't think there's 100 players better than Bradyn Swinson. He's a fantastic player, can get to the quarterback, just a constant disruptor in the backfield. And frankly, just thought that he probably should have been taken a lot earlier. By the way, the location he went to was fantastic. Going to the New England Patriots, learning with some of the guys around there. It's a great franchise with an up-and-coming roster, and he probably is going to be more of just a pass rusher on 3rd down occasions, probably more as just a rotational piece to start off with. But as he develops, I think he has the ability, size, and athleticism to at some point potentially become a 3-down starter for this team. And if you're telling me that I have somebody with that level of upside in the 5th round, then that's awesome value and a big-time steal in my opinion. It also does help Bradyn Swinson that when you look at that Patriots defensive line, the edge rushers are kind of weak. So it's kind of really nice for Bradyn Swinson to fall right into their lap, play with some really good players, and be at some point end up becoming one of their full-time starters, because that is somewhat of a position of need for the New England Patriots. So good location for Bradyn Swinson, as well as just a fantastic pickup for the New England Patriots. Again, 5th round is way too low for what I think is a potential top 50 prospect in this class. So pickup for him. Let's go ahead and move on to my next player, which is going to be Chris Paul Jr., or I believe some people call him Pooh Paul Jr. Don't quote me on that, but I think I've heard that a few times. Listen, he's a little bit undersized, and I think against bigger offensive linemen, that might make him struggle here and there. But he's just a really smart, athletic player that is good in coverage. I also think he's good against the run. So for a team in the LA Rams, who got him in the 5th round, by the way, who desperately needed linebacking help, this is just an awesome pickup. It kind of like Bradyn Swinson, in a lot of ways mutually beneficial for both teams. Now, admittedly speaking, I had a day 2 grade on Chris Paul. I had him maybe going late day 2, around, I don't know, end of round 2, early round 3, somewhere along those lines. But for him to fall all the way to the 5th round is just crazy value. Again, yes, he needs to put on a little bit more size, a little bit more muscle. Unfortunately, he's only 6'1", so he's not going to grow much more. But against the run, I think he could potentially struggle against bigger guards and tackles. But if he puts on some muscle, I think there's a lot of upside for him to potentially one day be a starting linebacker for this Rams team. I think it's going to be one of those situations where, yes, he's undersized, and yes, there's certain limitations to his game, but he's just going to make so many plays during training camp that Rams team is just going to fall in love with him. And at some point, they're just going to have to say, you know what? Yes, he's a 5th round pick, but we got to get this guy on the field because he's one of our best players. And I think when that does end up happening, they're going to have a really good, solid starting linebacker that can do a lot of things for them. Again, yes, he's an undersized player. You have to keep that in mind. So against bigger guards and tackles, he might end up struggling. But I think at the bare minimum, he can rely on his athleticism. He can rely on his overall skill set that he has right now. And as he puts on muscle, as he puts on more mass, he's just going to continue to get a bigger and wider range of tools that I think is just going to propel him into becoming what is potentially a starting linebacker for a lot of teams. And I think for the Rams, it's a good spot for him to land into. But all right, let's go ahead and move on now to an offensive player. And this one might shock a little people, but I think it's because of how far he fell. And that's Quinn Ewers. Admittedly speaking, Quinn was always going to be a day 2023 pick. I did not think there was any chance of him going in rounds 1 through 3, but I thought at the earliest, maybe round 4, at the latest, maybe rounds 5, maybe early 6th round. But he fell basically to the end of the draft in round 7. And I think, listen, it sucks that he's going to probably lose out on a lot of money, but man, the location is just perfect for him. He's in a situation with Miami where he gets to play in a system that's kind of similar to Texas. It's not a very demanding position either in terms of what McDaniel is going to ask him to do. And he's going to be in a spot where he gets to sit behind Tua, probably maybe even starts off as QB3. But I think he can easily beat Zach Wilson for that QB2 role. And once Tua either gets injured or we'll have to wait and see what happens, then Quinn Ewers very well can find himself in a situation where he's going to be asked to play. And that's a really good spot for a quarterback taken in the 7th round to get. To be on a roster where the backup quarterback position is 100% up in the air, and you might have a legit shot to get a lot of playing time in this upcoming season and prove why you should have been taken earlier, is a great spot for Quinn. Again, I also think the location is really good. Quinn has a very live arm. He's great in the intermediate to underneath game. And I think unlike Tua, he can get the ball out there to Tyreek Hill on those big bombs. Now, he's not the most accurate a lot of times, but he can throw it. That's the good thing. And I think learning from Tua, learning from McDaniel, learning how to play with more anticipation and timing, and just getting a lot of reps with those other receivers, I think Quinn could end up legitimately becoming the backup quarterback for this team. And again, it's just a really good spot for him to go. And to reiterate, I thought he should have went a lot earlier. This is a guy who I thought could have went round 4 earliest, maybe round 5. He falls to the back end of round 7. And for me, you get a backup quarterback who I think could be a spot starter for you in certain situations. I think you'll take that in round 7. So good pickup. I think Quinn Ewers is obviously going to be frustrated with his landing spot at round 7 and all the money he probably lost, but it's a good location for him regardless of the spot. So hopefully it'll work out and something nice can work out there. Next, we're going to talk about a guy who did end up going in round 1, but I thought it was very late, and that's Jihaad Campbell. I had a top 10 grade on Jihaad Campbell. Again, if you watch the podcast, you guys already know that. I love Jihaad Campbell. He's one of my favorite players in this draft class. Big, bulky linebacker that is just a fluid mover. He's solid in coverage, can get downhill, can be a thumper. I understand linebackers are not like the craziest value pick in round 1, but when I think you get a guy like Jihaad Campbell, who I think could be a bona fide stud for your team, then I think you just take him. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, who got him at pick 31, I think is not only just insane value, but I think frankly it's just insane in general that he fell this far. I know there's a shoulder injury, and I understand that that is a legit concern, especially for a linebacker who, a lot of tackling in that position. But I feel like at the end of the day, even if he has to sit a few weeks, even if he misses training camp, whatever might be the case, you catch him up to speed in either year 2 or a few weeks into the season, whatever might happen. And what you do, you just develop him and you give him time to get comfortable playing again. And I think once he gets back into a rhythm, whether it's week 1 or week 10, who knows, who cares? Then I think you're going to get somebody who could legitimately become a Pro Bowl level linebacker. And I think it's a great landing spot for Jihaad as well. This is an Eagles team that is trying to compete for championships. They are trying to win yet again, and they had a bit of a hole at linebacker. I thought their linebackers were good last year. Obviously, Bond is fantastic, but Nakobe Dean, you just don't know if you're going to pay him soon or if you want to upgrade with Jihaad Campbell. Whatever might be the case, you end up now with a great set of linebackers. Jihaad Campbell steps in. I even wonder if they might even put him off the edge as like an edge rusher, because out of high school, he was an edge rusher, and I could easily see him being somebody who can put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. So for me, the value there at pick 31 was just immense. I thought he was a top 10 potential pick. He ended up falling outside of the top 10. Then I thought maybe he'd fall to 19 to the Buccaneers. He didn't. So he fell all the way to 31, and it's just great value. Philadelphia Eagles, yet again, home run hit here for the Philadelphia Eagles. They get a fantastic player, not just a player that's going to step in and just be good immediately, but also somebody that can develop to become legitimately great. So just all around, a great pickup for the Philadelphia Eagles and a great landing spot for Jihaad Campbell, where he can develop and also have time to get fully healthy. Let's move on now to Trey Amos. This was somebody who fell to the back end of round 2. Frankly, I kind of felt like he had the talent to go as early as late round 1 or very early round 2, but he did not. He fell to the back end of round 2. And man, it's just good value. This is a Washington team that really needed cornerback help, especially outside of Sanders still, and especially with Lattimore, with all the questions that are there with him. They get Trey Amos, who I think immediately steps in as that second outside corner and can develop to, at some point, surpass Marshawn Lattimore and be the true cornerback 1. He's a solid athlete, not the greatest athlete, but a solid athlete. Long, rangy, uses his hands very well, can be more of a press corner, and just do a lot of things that the Washington Commanders are going to want him to do. I think he needs to learn how to tackle a lot better. He's very high when he tackles, and sometimes I could see a world where Derrick Henry puts his helmet into his chest and just plows him into the dirt. Like, that could happen. happen. So he's got to get a little lower, got to learn on some technique issues. And again, he has upside to be a cornerback 1, but still has a lot of work to be done. But again, you get him in the back end of round 2. I thought you probably could have took him round 1, and I honestly would not have complained about it. So I think you just develop him, give him time. Now you're in a spot where you have a really good player. Let him learn, let him go through some struggles occasionally. But all in all, just think it's an awesome player that you get in round 2 with great value at a position you really needed help in. And yeah, just a good pickup, end of round 2. So just awesome value for Trey Amos. Let's move on now to a pair of players that went to one team, so I'm kind of meshing them into one, and that's Donovan Ezaraku to the Dallas Cowboys and Savon Ravel in round 3 also to the Dallas Cowboys. Both these players I thought went way lower than expected. Donovan I thought was a round 1 guy, and Savon Ravel I thought was a round 2 guy. So for the Dallas Cowboys to get them rounds 2 and 3 respectively is just great value. Immediately speaking, I think Ravel is a bit more of a positional need at the cornerback spot, just with all the injury history of Bland with his injury last year, and then Trevon Diggs, who just consistently has been injured these past few years. Ravel, admittedly speaking, is coming off an ACL injury, but he's looked good so far. Everything so far is checked out, and if he comes back fully healthy and ready to go, man, he's a good mover. He's athletic as hell, long, rangy, sticking coverage, can make plays on the ball. The ACL is the big reason why he fell, because a lot of his game is based off athleticism, and if he takes a step back athletically, then that's going to hurt his draft stock, and I think that's what ultimately happened here. For the Dallas Cowboys, this is an awesome pickup. It fixes a big need of theirs, which is depth in the cornerback position, as well as potentially a starter. And for Donovan Ezaraku, yes, they didn't need an edge rusher desperately badly, but they definitely could have used one. Ezaraku immediately steps in, probably will be your edge rusher 2 opposite of Micah Parsons, or maybe even your edge rusher 3 behind Dante Fowler. We'll have to wait and see. But man, you look at this Cowboys defensive line, there's a lot of young pieces that they're going to have on this roster for many years to come. Obviously, Micah Parsons is going to get a long-term extension any day now. Opposite of him, now you have Donovan Ezaraku, not to mention Sam Williams, who was a second-round pick, I think, 3 years ago. And then Marshawn Kneeland, they took in the second round just last year. You pair that with a vet like Dante Fowler, who's also in the room, and I look at this edge rushing room for Dallas, it's deep and it's damn good. So I just think Dallas did a nice thing here where they didn't reach on positions of need. Yes, they need a running back and receiver, but the value was there on the board. They did not overthink it. They now have a nice influx of young talent in this roster that I think will go a long way. So for the Dallas Cowboys, they did not overthink it. Great pickups here, both impactful, high-level starters that I think will be on this roster for the foreseeable future. Next up, let's talk about Mike Green to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I do want to throw this out here. There's a lot of off-the-field stuff that I am not too tapped into. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in the legal system, so I don't know really much about what's happening there and what's ultimately going to happen with this case, and whether it could lead to a suspension, whether it could lead to him being out of the league, I do not know. So simply what I am doing here is just mentioning the player, the prospect, not the person. I'm just simply talking about the player that they're getting, the guy on the field in Mike Green. Mike Green, man, this is somebody who I had going top 10 in a lot of my mock drafts. I had him going top 15 in a lot of my mock drafts and top 20 in a lot of my mock drafts. In basically every single mock draft, he was off the board very early into round 1. There's kind of two sides to how this can work out. If it works out well and this whole legal stuff kind of is okay, you know, again, I don't want to go too far into it, but let's just say it all works out for him, then you're getting a high-level pass rusher who will be on this roster for many years to come. I mean, he can legitimately be a 8 to 10 to plus sacks a season type of guy. And I think he's also decent against the run if he puts on a little bit more muscle, a little bit more weights. Worst case scenario, though, what you end up getting is somebody who's out of the league. So it's kind of a risky pick, but I also do think that if everything does get taken care of and if he's able to play on the field, they're getting somebody who can be your Kyle Van Noy replacement. He'll probably play opposite of him at times this year. I think at some point he could be the replacement for him. And for the Baltimore Ravens, by the way, stellar draft. Malachi Starks in round 1, Mike Green in round 2. That is a high-level secondary addition that's going to allow Kyle Hamilton to move all over the field. And then Mike Green is just going to bring a pass rush element this team definitely could also use. So for the Baltimore Ravens, 2 awesome pickups, great value in the second round, of course, pending the legal situation. If everything pans out, though, Mike Green is awesome value. I thought he could have went as early as round 1, early round 1 at that. And man, he falls to the back end of round 2. Hopefully things work out for them, because if they do, they're getting an awesome prospect and talent in Mike Green. Real quick, I do want to briefly cover Will Johnson, who's technically not on this list, but I just wanted to quickly mention him because if Will Johnson gets healthy and if this knee issue is not a huge issue, then getting him in the middle of round 2 is insane value for somebody who I thought could have went top 15 even after kind of a up and down early 2024. If these injuries do limit him as a prospect, that obviously sucks. Then that might limit what he can do in the NFL. But if the injuries are not that severe and he can return to the kind of that 2023 form, you're getting a cornerback one, like a true lockdown guy. And that could be considered one of the bigger steals in the draft. But this knee injury does kind of seem to be pretty serious, so I didn't throw him on the list because of that. But all right, let's talk about it. Maybe the biggest draft steal of the draft, and maybe in a long time, in Shedeur Sanders, just with the value of who he is and where he ultimately fell. I want to say this. I know there's a lot of people who don't like Shedeur, and I think a lot of it is just because of some of the ego stuff, nepotism stuff. I understand. I don't hate Shedeur. I think he was a great prospect. I thought he did some great things for Colorado, a school that just the year before that he went there was a 1-win team with Shedeur. Won 4 games last year. This most recent year, I think they won 8 or 9 games this year. So just a fantastic job by Shedeur. I thought he did a great job. I understand people are saying, well, you know, he just followed his dad. His dad gave him the starting job. Now, I don't think he gave him the starting job. I think he earned the starting job with how well he played. So all that out of the way there. Just want to throw that in there real quickly. Yeah, he fell. I thought he was a round 2 prospect, somebody that could have went top 50, and he didn't go top 50. Now, there's a lot of reasons for it. Poor interviews, maybe the talent not being worth the brand risk, all the issues that come with actually having Shedeur in terms of the attention, the media, the off the field stuff you have to be a little concerned with. And I think a lot of teams saw that stuff and they said, you know what, we don't want to have to deal with that, especially if he's not this generational talent. I do believe that if Shedeur was a talent similar to Cam Ward, he probably still would have ended up going round 1. That's just simply because the talent would have then been worth all the extra stuff that does come with it. But because the talent probably isn't worth it, these teams passed on him. Now, I want to say this. I think Shedeur could be a starting level quarterback in the league. Now, I don't think he'll be a top 15, top 10 quarterback in the league. I think he can end up being a really solid game manager. But for him to fall into round 5 to the Cleveland Browns, that was a little bit crazy for me. Now, I don't love the landing spot for him, by the way. Like, of all the teams that could have taken him, the Browns were the team that took him. I think that's kind of sad and a little bit frustrating, especially because they just took Dylan Gabriel like a round before, 2 rounds before. It was just bizarre. Their whole process the Browns did there was bizarre, and he now enters into kind of a weird, crowded quarterback room where he's going to have to compete with Dylan, compete with Pickett, and compete with Flacco. And I don't know how that's going to work out. I think he'll get opportunities, but we'll have to wait and see. It's one of the biggest falls that we've ever seen, especially given the talent that he has. And before anyone says, oh, he was a 5th round prospect, that's just not true. Guys like Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, Joe Klatt, almost every single scout out there who get paid millions of dollars to do these type of jobs that are heavily respected by not only fans, but also NFL teams alike. And then they all had him as a top 50 player. Joe Klatt, I think, had him ranked number 1. Now, he might be a little bit biased because he's a Colorado guy, but you get my point. Mel Kiper was screaming for him to come off the board. Daniel Jeremiah had him in his top 20. Charles Davis, I know, also had him very high. So this is not a situation where you're getting a bunch of super biased people who are saying he's not, you know, who's saying that he's a top 5 pick. No, these are legit NFL scouts. These are legit NFL analysts. And it just kind of happened to be that the talent was there. It just was the ego, it was the interview process that ultimately led him down the board. So at some point in time, 3-4 years down the line, maybe even 20 years down the line, I don't know, we will definitely be getting documentaries regarding Shedeur Sanders and his slide. And it's going to be very interesting because I think there's a lot of things that have not been told as to why he dropped. And I'm excited to see what that ultimately looks like. But you guys let me know in the comment section below, what players do you guys think were the biggest steals of the 2025 NFL draft? And if you enjoyed, hit the like and subscribe button. Love you guys. Peace.